So, walking on two legs, you probably did it the second you rolled out of bed today, right? Just completely automatic, didn't even give it a second thought. But honestly, if you look at the grand scheme of the animal kingdom, it's actually incredibly weird. I mean, most mammals are perfectly happy zooming around on four legs, but our ancestors, they decided to stand up. Why did they do it? What did it cost us? And how does that ancient, frankly bizarre choice still dictate the way you and I live, work, and even feel physical pain today? Well, in today's Explainer, we are decoding one of the most brilliant evolutionary gambles in the history of life on Earth. Let's get right to it.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's the ultimate question, isn't it? Why did we start walking on two legs? Think of this like a 7 million-year-old cold case. For a really long time, scientists were searching for that one single smoking gun. One dramatic event that just forced us upright. But nature rarely works that neatly. Instead, bipedalism was born out of a perfect storm. It was this fascinating, highly complex combination of survival factors that all just happened to converge at exactly the right time. Our ancestors were essentially backed into an evolutionary corner, and standing up, well, that was literally the only way out.
Now, every great detective story needs an inciting incident, and ours kicks off roughly 7 to 5 million years ago. I want you to imagine the landscape of Africa rapidly transforming. For millions of years, our ancient ancestors had it made. They thrived in lush, dense, unbroken forests. They lived a highly successful life swinging and climbing through the canopy. But then, the climate started to shift. It got drier, and those endless protective forests began to shrink and break apart, totally replaced by massive, exposed stretches of open savanna. Suddenly, the grocery store wasn't just right next door in the neighboring tree anymore. Food sources became incredibly scattered. To survive, our ancestors had to leave the safety of the trees and cross wide open land just to find their next meal. It was an absolute crisis.
And this brilliantly illustrates how they solved that crisis. Take chimpanzee knuckle walking, for example. It is fantastic for short bursts or just moving around the base of trees, but it has a massive, and I mean massive, energy cost over long distances. It's just exhausting. But if you shift your weight and balance on 2 feet, suddenly you unlock incredible energy efficiency for long treks. When those African forests shrank, an ape walking on 4 legs would literally burn through all its calories just trying to commute between the remaining patches of trees. By shifting to human bipedalism, early hominins completely slashed their energy expenditure. They could walk miles and miles across the open savanna to find scattered food without, starving to death in the process. But here's the thing, that energy efficiency was really just the beginning. Walking upright turned out to be the ultimate biological multi-tool. First off, it allowed them to quickly adapt to that brutal new open environment. It let them forage efficiently across massive territories to find scarce calories. It maximized those vital energy savings we just talked about, but it also unlocked these completely unexpected superpowers. It literally changed how they beat the heat through thermoregulation, and it completely rewired how they protected themselves and interacted with each other. So, bipedalism wasn't just a slight physical tweak, it was a total lifestyle overhaul. All of this created an unstoppable evolutionary snowball effect. Or, the ancient equivalent of a viral YouTube video. Once the trend started, it just exploded everywhere because it worked so incredibly well. Think about the new savanna environment. The grass is incredibly tall. If you're down on all fours, you're practically blind. Step 1, standing up allows you to literally see over the obstacles. Step 2, that means you spot predators early, which alone is a massive survival advantage. But step 3 is where the real magic happens. By walking entirely on your legs, your hands are completely freed up from the job of moving you around. Because our hands no longer had to act as feet, we could suddenly use them to carry food back to our group, hold weapons to defend ourselves, and most importantly, carry our vulnerable babies over long distances. This seemingly simple mechanical shift, it laid the absolute foundation for profound social bonding. Now, I really want you to imagine the blazing, relentless heat of the African savanna at high noon. There is no shade, just a brutal sun beating down on you. This brings us to thermoregulation. It is one of the most brilliant, yet completely invisible benefits of standing up. Think about it. If you are walking on all fours, your entire back, which is a massive surface area, is taking a direct hit from the sun's radiation. But by standing completely upright, our ancestors drastically minimized the surface area exposed to that direct sunlight. You're basically shrinking your solar footprint down to just the top of your head and your shoulders. Plus, the air temperature is naturally cooler the higher up you go from the baking earth. Standing up literally lifted our torsos into a zone of improved cooling airflow. We basically evolved our very own biological air conditioning.
Now, to really appreciate this, we need to slow down for a second and look at the sheer scale of deep time here, because this absolutely did not happen overnight. The fossil record gives us a really clear progression of footprints. 7 million years ago, we see the very first kind of tentative hints of bipedalism with Sahelanthropus tchadensis. Fast forward to 4.4 million years ago, and Ardipithecus ramidus shows us creatures literally splitting their time between climbing trees and walking on the ground. Then, right around 3.2 million years ago, we meet Australopithecus afarensis. You probably know her as the famous Lucy, who was a fully committed, upright walker. Finally, by 1.9 million years ago with Homo erectus, we see an ancestor whose body proportions look incredibly modern, built entirely for long-distance upright travel. Millions of years of trial and error are literally etched right into these bones.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is exactly how extreme those physical changes had to be. Evolution essentially had to remodel a creature built for swinging into one built for striding, literally from the ground up. The pelvis had to become drastically shorter and wider, basically acting as a bowl to support our internal organs when we stand upright. Our legs grew much longer for stride efficiency, but crucially, the knees had to angle inward so our feet plant directly under our center of gravity. Without that angle, we would all waddle like penguins. We also developed a distinct arch in our feet for shock absorption, and our big toe snapped right into line with the others to act as a powerful lever for pushing off. And the spine? It mutated from a simple arch into a highly complex S shape, just to balance our heavy heads directly over our hips. But of course, in biology, there is absolutely no such thing as a free lunch. We completely redesigned our skeleton, and we are absolutely still paying the evolutionary toll for that today. That S-shaped spine? It's a marvel of engineering, sure, but it's basically a stack of blocks just begging to crumble, which is exactly why almost everyone eventually experiences some form of back pain. And that shorter, wider pelvis? It completely changed the mechanics of the birth canal, leading to vastly more difficult and painful childbirth compared to other primates. Also, balancing on two relatively small feet gives us a terrifyingly high center of gravity, which means a much higher risk of dangerous falls. And let's be honest, compared to a cheetah or even a dog, our sprinting speeds are pitiful. We traded blazing savanna speed for a bigger brain. But in exchange, well, we all eventually need a good chiropractor.
So the crucial point is that bipedalism wasn't just a fancy new way to walk. It was the spark that ignited everything else. As the science shows on screen here, bipedalism opened the path to the evolution of the brain and culture. Without it, there would be no tools or language. Really think about that for a second. Because we stood up, our hands were finally free. Because our hands were free, we could craft complex tools. And crafting those tools required deep focus, fine motor skills, and teaching, which directly fueled the rapid expansion of our brains. Eventually, those big, calorie-hungry brains developed language, art, and complex societies. The remarkably simple act of locking our knees and balancing on 2 feet, that is the prerequisite for everything it means to be human.
Which brings us to our final thought. We made an incredible evolutionary bargain millions of years ago on those drying African savannas. We literally traded physical comfort, ease of childbirth, and physical speed for the ability to hold tools, invent language, and build global cultures. So I have to ask you, was the back pain worth the brain power? Next time your knees ache after a long run or your lower back tweaks after sitting at a desk all day, just remember, that's just the ancient echo of your ancestors making the ultimate sacrifice, all so that you could have the intelligence to understand the universe. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you in the next one.